So yeah, like we are moving on from your question specifically. We just had like this very vivid presentation of the rays of the cult of Saint Jerome in our closest vicinity. So now I'm going to narrow it down to a certain individual, Paolo Vergerio, who actually managed to appropriate a certain individual, so Saint Jerome, because of so manifold of his activity, he somehow managed to mention all of them in just one and add something else by himself. So what I want to do here is first briefly tell more about the development of the cult of Saint Jerome, and then tell more about Vergerio as an innovation in the genre. This is because Vergerio adopted Jerome as his patron saint, as Ines already mentioned, and what else he did? He completely transformed the genre of public preaching by adding some characteristics of messianic oratory. And in the end, I'm going to pose a question: who or what is actually the subject of Vergerio's sermons? So, first, the cult of Saint Jerome was appropriated because Saint Jerome was so active in so many different fields that it was possible for so many different groups to connect with it. So the first thing was that it happened when the papacy was in Avignon. Jerome was adopted as a model of exemplary Christian theologian. The second thing was that monastic practice adopted Jerome as an example of hermetic piety. This was mostly in Franciscan monasteries. And then the third thing was the humanist. As also already Ines mentioned, Jerome was considered a figure of man of letters since his extreme knowledge for classical oratory that he adopted to translate the Bible. And then it was in Dalmatia that Jerome became the national saint. So, then moving on to Vergerio, what was Vergerio's quality that he added here was that he somehow managed to pour all these different appropriations of Jerome. He managed to add something else. He said that the cult of Saint Jerome originates exactly from Capodistria, which was his hometown. So maybe here it would be just fine to have a briefly account of Vergerio's bibliography. So Pier Paolo Vergerio came from Capodistria. He was born there in 1467. Afterwards, he went to Italy, where he went to Florence, to Padua, and to many different universities there. Maybe just a quick reminder as well. Here I'm speaking about Pier Paolo Vergerio the Elder, and this is not the Pier Paolo Vergerio who was who brought Protestantism to Primo Stuba. So he had an impressive career, wide-ranging education, which included the formal study of grammar, dialectic, medicine, law, rhetoric, and eventually also Greek when it became possible. He was in contact with esteemed Caruccio Salutati as well, and he spent at least 27 years in the life of service afterwards when he went to Budapest. What else? His writing included an edition of Petrarca's Africa, several orations delivered at the Carrara and Papal courts, political works like the Fragmentary de Monarchia, bibliographies of Carrara princes, and an extensive letter collection, a treatise on liberal education entitled De Ingenibus Muribus et liberalibus studia seductintia, and an abundant number of speeches in classical style, by which he contributed enormously to the development of rhetoric practice in modernism and Renaissance. An outstanding example of this are without doubt these 7 speeches, sermons to Saint Jerome. So, his vow, he actually had, he made a vow to mark Jerome's birth every day in the end, every year in the end of September, by giving a special preach about the Jerome. He did this every year because of 2 reasons. Because his family was deeply devoted to cult of Saint Jerome, attributing it to two particular reasons. One of those was because the family of Pier Paolo Bergerio actually could successfully escape from Capodistria after the rations from Venice, and they attributed this to Jerome's divine intercession. And it is very, very extraordinary that Jerome actually claims that Bergerio actually claims that extorting Saint Jerome was a part of the local cult there. So as we already heard with Ines in Dalmatia, but here we must again keep in mind that what Ines was telling is part of the national globalistic culture as well. But here this was probably the effect of humanism, and this was completely, of course, Bergerio shared the humanistic belief of Jerome being from somewhere close to him. So, but the curious thing is that actually in Pupa there are 6 in the parish of Pupa. There are 6 churches that have Jerome as their saint. As well, of course, there is the Franciscan monastery of Saint Anne, and a lot of altars and in different of churches as well are consecrated to Saint Jerome. So what Bergerio writes here, I'm touched by a particular devotion and special affection for Jerome, which springs from enduring piety of my ancestors, and even more from the extremely numerous, significant and obvious services extended personally to me and my entire family. After this passage, he also describes that his family, while they still could do it before they had to flee, because afterwards, of course, they didn't have that much money and propriety anymore, that they organized a feast every time to Jerome's birthday for everybody, for the poor of the city, and for all their service. As well, they were reading sermons and so on, which is exactly something like the same attributes as normally cult of saints had during the Middle Ages already. Then continuing on, yes. First, I want to mention also this also that in later on, Pier Paolo Bergerio also writes that out of when he was still living in Koper, when he was young, he had nobody to share with him, to talk with him, since all other people there, everybody that lived there, were uneducated and boring, actually boring. But even though he comes from such a place, this doesn't really mean that he couldn't excel as well, since there is nobody else that he could mention from these places except from Saint Jerome that comes as well. And probably exactly because of this saying that Virgilio publicly shared. It was also later on in Biondo's history that they were always mentioned together as coming from the same part. So then, this is how Virgilio writes to his father to remind him of miracles of Saint Jerome. And then we have continuing on. Yeah, there is nobody else that would do better honor to Virgilio to be mentioned with, except with Saint Jerome. Then we have here a very good example how Virgilio completely transformed the genre of preaching with classical oratory. What he did usually, if to praise a saint or another public figure, for example in funeral orations, the deceased prince, usually they would start with the principal verse from the scriptures and then continue on by dividing the theme in different sub-themes, and each one would speak about certain qualities that were that person had. And then they would describe comparisons and give examples of the person they were speaking about. But what Pier Paolo Virgilio did, he completely broke with this tradition. He omitted the biblical verse in the beginning, and then he continued without special division of the theme. He never gave any special comparison, anything at all. But this wouldn't be strange to tell in courses of humanism if that was actually somebody from Virgilio's contemporary life. But we are talking about here a saint that is completely different character that were those subjects of the funeral orations. And for example, there is research by John McManaman, which I owe much of these ideas, is comparing actually Virgilio's other funeral speeches to the speakers, to orators of his contemporary time. And what he mentions there is exactly this break, because Virgilio added so much more pathos, and he instead of preaching according to the books for oratory which said to make to divide it in certain sections connecting with the principal verse, instead of that he did it by using the oratory books from Cicero and from Antique, which we can see like this. For example, he says, who was ever equal to Jerome in letters? To call anyone superior is out of the question. So no comparison, no examples from the Bible, nothing at all. And he poses his sentences only like facts and everything that we read in these speeches. For example, if I continue there with praising Jerome about his knowledge of letters, he said, what about sacred letters? A familiar saying tells us that whatever Jerome did not happen to know is not part of God's law, actually at all. So he doesn't even offer any reasonable argument or anything. But also, when reading this, instead of feeling like we are listening about hagiography or a certain vita, like it was in the Middle Ages, we feel like we're in the middle of Cicero's public speech in the Senate. And then again, when speaking about Jerome's eloquence, he says, at this point, I would certainly attempt to praise the eloquence of Jerome, which flows smoothly like most limpid river and gives delight by its appearance and sound, if the elegance of his prose were not readily apparent. And then he says, to do justice to that subject in a sermon, you would need the eloquence of Jerome himself, which is exactly as Livius was describing when Cicero was displayed publicly at the Forum. He said that if somebody wanted to adequately describe the scene, it would need another Cicero himself to describe. And same does here Virgilio, but by posing Jerome as an example of best learnedness possible. And he does that in this way, that in the end we ask ourselves what is exactly the purpose of his speeches. Since sometimes Virgilio even ventures from the theme of Jerome so much that instead of, he does use quotes, that is true, but of Jerome, but instead of speaking about Jerome's lives and miracles and so on, he ventures into contemplate debates about if oratory can ever do enough justice to their subject, and adding similar phrases. Often even he goes to tell about his life connected with Jerome. For example, he has a huge passage about his father's death in his speeches, in which he just briefly sometimes mentions the name of Jerome. And in the 8th speech, for example, in the beginning, the name of Saint Jerome is mentioned in the first part for 8 times, and with no connection with miracles, with anything at all, just like applying by the grace of Saint Jerome. And then he continues by asking himself if his oratory is ever going to be good enough to praise Jerome. And then just in the end, when we come, he mentions Saint Jerome and the question if he's Ciceronian or Christian, and then he finishes his speech. So after reading all those speeches, we have a feeling that actually they were just rhetoric practice in which Virgilio was speaking about Jerome, but not actually telling any details about his life at all. But nevertheless, what he wanted to say explained that Jerome was man of letters and that his oratory was to be extolled. What is better to do than to write speeches in the manner